Today on the Morning Edition, educator turnover is on a concerning trend this year in Alaska. This morning, we break down the data and numbers to clearly define what's happening in our state. Plus, the Anchorage municipality has evolved quite a bit over the past 20 years, which was when the last fire protection plan was created. We'll take a look at the new plan that's been signed to cover the next 10 years. And later, the veteran advocate responsible for bringing wreaths across America to Iowa might not be able to run the show these days, but his family still is. You won't want to miss their story as they step up to fill his shoes as the Morning Edition starts now. Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Thanks for waking up with us today. Aaron, you missed a big windstorm in the Matsu, but you know that there has been a disaster declaration declared there.
Yeah, if you remember back in January of 2022 when we did see those devastating winds through the valley, this is a somewhat similar event that we did see through the weekend into the first part of this week. Now, over the last 24 hours, those winds have died down greatly, but that disaster declaration was for that December 5th through 9th windstorm. Strongest wind gust was up to 89 miles per hour, and we did see a persistent gust over 50 miles per hour for more than 48 hours for a good portion of the valley, which led to damage to homes, property, as well as vehicles. Now, while winds have died down over the last 24 hours, we will see some of those winds increasing once again later this evening into your Thursday. This is where we could see gusts up to about 35, possibly 40 miles per hour. Not as strong as what we did see, but there will be occasional gusts later this evening, and then we'll see that kind of subside into our Thursday, and then another round of some possible winds into the weekend. But both scenarios will bring winds largely less than what we did see with those most previous windstorm. 1 below currently is where we're sitting at. That is officially the coldest morning that Anchorage has seen so far this season. In fact, a good portion of South Central waking up to some sub-zero values. Campbell Creek 12 below this morning, 6 below in Muldoon. Government Hill holding above zero this morning, but many areas across the state continue to favor those colder conditions. We've got 6 below in Wasilla, where those winds have died down in the valley. It's actually allowing temperatures to bottom out below that 0-degree mark. Even colder as you head into the Copper River Basin, where we do have a cold weather advisory through the end of this week. 33 below currently in Golcana, and we've got even colder conditions to the north into the interior. So while we're holding on to some cloud coverage this morning, that decreases through the day. We are going to see temperatures struggle to make a run near the double-digit values, but largely expecting this cold weather pattern to stay with us. And there is a chance we could see some snow into the interior later this week. I'll have more on that and that 7-day forecast for you coming up.
Today's top story, new information presented to the Alaska State Board of Education shows educator turnover rates in the state continue to rise. Justin Matson breaks down the data for us.
Folks, there is a lot of information to unpack here, so let's hop right into it. Take a look at this right here behind me. This graph showing the percentages of principals and teachers that have left their schools since the COVID pandemic. Now, you'll notice right here that there is a dip here in 2020, but has overall been on a steady increase. You can see this is school specific. That's because, as the director of the Alaska Center for Education Policy, Danya DeFios, explains, there are different ways to measure turnover.
There's different ways that you could look at turnover. A teacher might decide to leave their school but stay in the district, or they might decide to leave their school and go to another district, or they might decide to leave their school entirely.
Now take a look. This new graph behind me illustrates the data set measuring the percentage of principals and teachers that are leaving those districts. Here, once again, is that dip in 2020 followed by an uptick in educators. DeFeo says this data follows a trend that we have been seeing nationally.
That Alaska is sort of looking like many other states. We're at a place where the teacher turnover and teacher shortage in the nation has reached a crisis level, and Alaska's trend in turnover is consistent with what we've seen.
One more set of graphs for you folks. Take a look at this one. This one is showcasing the rural-urban divide. You can see that principals are leaving their rural communities at a much higher rate than teachers. However, the opposite is true once you reach an urban center, where you see teachers leaving at a higher rate than principals. Now, DeFeo says the concern for these rural communities is the instability that comes with a principal's departure.
The Principal is the leader of the school, and they set the tone for a lot of things that happen there. And stability in leadership is important, but especially one that where you're doing service to communities and to kids.
The only thing this presentation can't tell us is why these educators are leaving, but DeFeo says a survey will be going out to teachers and principals so they can hear from them directly. Justin Mattson, Alaska's news source.
Anchorage fire officials signed a long-awaited wildfire protection plan on Tuesday. Adelmi Ruiz joins us with those details. Adelmi.
Kristen, the signing marked the first major update in almost 20 years and comes after months of hard work on the plan. The new plan creates a clear playbook for wildfire prevention, evacuation routes, and emergency response. It maps out risk areas across the city's wildland-urban interface where homes sit next to heavily forested land. The plan also breaks the most populated risk zones into 30 suppression units to target hazards more effectively. Fire officials say this 10-year plan gives teams a stronger strategy before the next big wildfire.
The environment has changed a bit in the fact that our plan is almost 20 years old that we had pre-existing. We've had increased development within the Anchorage municipality. We've had a couple of different evolutions of bug kill come through in our forested lands. And so we have a different level of threat within the Anchorage municipality than we did before. So it's definitely time to revisit that.
There are recommendations in the plan for community members to lower wildfire risks to their property and plan for evacuation routes. Check out this story on our website and mobile app for more. Kristen.
All right, thanks, Adelmi. ConocoPhillips has confirmed to Alaska's news source it laid off up to 12.5% of its North Slope workforce since September. It comes as employees moved to form a union. 243 workers at the Kaparik, Alpine, and Willow oil fields filed a petition last month with the National Labor Relations Board, or NLRB. They're seeking to join the United Steelworkers Union, citing concerns about staffing, safety, and pay. The company says it's working with the NLRB for an election and wants workers to have the information they need to decide. ConocoPhillips announced in September it would cut 20 to 25% of its global workforce after merging with Marathon Oil. But the company's spokesperson says they sought to limit the North Slope impact, characterizing cuts made there as about half the global rate. As winter tightens its grip on Alaska, boat owners face a hidden danger, even when their boats are safely tied up at the dock. Danny Tompkins tells us what the harbor master is saying.
The Whittier Harbor is peaceful as winter slows things down. But one thing that doesn't take a break is safety. As temperatures drop and conditions shift fast, staying safe is even more critical.
I think just Alaska is a dangerous place, and if I can make it a little bit safer here in the harbor, so you and your family can go out and boat and do those things that Alaska has to offer safely, then I'd like to try to push that message as best I can.
Harbor Master David Borg says even experienced boaters need to respect Alaska's rapidly changing conditions.
If you go out there and you think you're going to test it, the weather here changes in a minute, and it's not always forecasted in the right way.
And one of the biggest threats, an acronym called SAD, or Sunk at Dock, which happens when snow packs into a boat's drainage system.
Okay, so this is a scupper, right? And this is where snow will get packed in, and then it'll rain, and then the snow will freeze up around these scuppers so the water won't drain.
Resulting in a sunk boat, which Borg has to report to the owner.
It's the worst phone call to make. When the harbor calls you at home and it comes up Whittier Harbor, people kind of get freaked out.
It's not just boats at risk, but also what they're tied to.
Here we have massive amount of wind, and coming down here in the wintertime with icy docks and a lot of wind, it's very easy for people to lose their footing.
Borg says if you see something unusual, speak up.
If you're in the waterfront and you see something that doesn't look right, a boat that's not sitting right, call us. Come up to the office, stop in and say hi.
The harbor master urges anyone heading out to know the conditions, gear up properly, and of course, keep safety at the forefront. Danny Tompkins, Alaska's news source.
Taking a closer look now at pedestrian safety. For one Anchorage man, walking is his preferred way to get around. And with the city facing a record number of pedestrian deaths this year, some might call that a risky choice. Lauren Maxwell took a walk with him to share his story.
Great Hartley has a nice house, a good job,
The briefcase goes under the jacket because otherwise it constantly slides off.
and yes, a car that runs. But Hartley doesn't get behind the wheel to go to work. He'd much prefer to walk.
I actually specifically ask my scheduler to put classrooms on the opposite side of campus so that I get more steps in.
Hartley is an associate professor at UAA who regularly makes the 2-mile trek from his home to campus and back, plus a lot more.
Yeah, I do about 54 miles a week.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Hartley knows being a pedestrian in Anchorage can be risky.
We've tied the record, last time I checked, at 15 deaths.
He does what he can to stay safe. But there's one spot on the walk
There's a retaining wall right here.
where that seems impossible.
When I'm on this sidewalk, I know, look how close I am. This is every day for me.
Pedestrians have died on this stretch of Tudor between the highway and Lake Otis, where the intersections with crosswalks are half a mile away. Hartley says the city could make things safer.
So this is the actual sidewalk. This is where I think the sidewalk should be.
By putting in a gravel path that's further from the road. Until then, he'll make the trek and take his chances on the side roads and parking lots that lead to UAA. He says, despite it all, he still loves walking to get around.
And yes, it is a cityscape and there are cars, but there's beauty out here.
For him, there is no better way. Lauren Maxwell, Alaska's news source.
Well, it's time for the 25th Annual Anchorage International Film Festival once again, and every year it gets a little bigger. We'll show you how these filmmakers are coming to Alaska to share their films and learning a bit about Alaska culture in the process. Coming up next.
Bitter cold air remains with us across the state, although a warming trend will bring temperatures briefly above zero through the interior. I'll have more on that 7-day forecast for you coming up. But first, that sunrise, 10:02 in Anchorage, 8:34 in Juneau.
And welcome back in. 15 minutes past the hour on this Wednesday morning. Aaron, what's the forecast looking like?
Right, we're still holding on to that cold air across the state. In fact, this will be the 5th consecutive day with temperatures across South Central sitting on the colder side. This coming off of where we did in November and started off the first few days of the month with some of those warm conditions. We saw temperatures in the 30s and the 40s. Since then, temperatures have been on the downward trend. Yesterday, we made it to 15 degrees. Today, we'll likely stay in the single digits, if not near about 10 to 11 degrees. So this will be the coldest day that we've seen so far this season. Currently at 1 below in Anchorage, 33 below in McGrath, 31 below in Fairbanks. Out west, as you head along the western parts of the state and through the open waters of the Bering, temperatures are actually slightly warmer. And this comes as we are expected to see some increasing snow that's going to build across western Alaska and then eventually into the interior later this week. But as far as this morning, not much going on across the state. There is our ridge that's keeping that blocking pattern with us, which is driving in those colder conditions across the state. And we do have an area of low pressure out towards southern parts of the Panhandle, which is keeping some light snow, if not some wintry mix to start off your Wednesday morning. But when you look at this ridge that is off towards the west, out towards the Bering Sea, it's going to continue to funnel in those colder conditions that remain with us across the state, and that will continue to lead to some of the coldest conditions that we've seen so far this season. But one thing we are going to be watching later this week is those temperatures steadily warming for areas out west. In fact, Nome, Kotzebue, already about 10 degrees warmer than this time yesterday. Still cold through the interior out towards western parts of the Alaska Range, or as you head west of the Alaska Range, you can see those temperatures still seeing some sub-zero values compared to this time yesterday, where we're still holding on to some of those cooler conditions. But with that warming weather pattern that we are going to see building in across portions of the state later this week, that will lead to a brief warming trend. Temperatures will briefly climb above zero through the interior, and we'll also have a snow potential. Of course, I'll have that for you coming up in my next weather hit. But as far as what we're going to see in terms of the winds, it's been a devastating windstorm event through the valley with several reports of damage to homes as well as businesses and vehicles. While we are seeing those winds dying down yesterday into this morning, later this afternoon into the evening, we'll begin to see winds increasing once again across portions of South Central. Down towards Anchorage, Kodiaks, western parts of the Kenai, and southern parts of the Mat-Su Valley. This is where we could once again see winds of about 30 to 40 miles per hour, if not some locally higher wind speeds. That dies down into our Thursday and then picks right back up Friday into Saturday. So we'll see a lull in each passing wind event that we are going to be dealing with across South Central, and this upcoming winds today and into our Friday will be a lot less active than what we did see with that 4 to 5 day event that did occur through the valley, but we'll still see some winds up to about 40 miles per hour. We'll make it to 10 today here in Anchorage. At 7-day forecast. Not much warmth as we look ahead through the next 7 days. We'll stay in the teens for highs with overnight lows sitting near zero, if not some sub-zero values. This morning, we're waking up to officially the coldest morning Anchorage has seen this season.
2025 marks the silver anniversary for the Anchorage International Film Festival. This year's is the biggest yet, with more films and filmmakers from Australia, Belgium, Germany, and all around the U.S. visiting Anchorage than ever before. They're here to show off their films, but while they're at it, they're getting a taste of Alaska, its beauty, and its people. Joe Allgood tells us more.
Alaska is a bucket list, and so we're trying to create a destination film festival.
Films worth freezing for has become the slogan of the Anchorage International Film Festival. But despite the single-digit temperatures, directors Pat McGee and Adam Lincolnhelt said the warm welcome of Anchorage audiences keeps filmmakers coming back.
They do always comment about how good the Anchorage audiences are, how good their questions are, how engaged they are. Like, they're blown away.
Past festivals have included winners from Tribeca and Sundance, some even shooting for the Academy.
We like to call it the icy road to the Oscars, you know?
This year's program is no different, featuring a packed schedule of over 180 films, including categories for Alaskan and Native-made films.
That sort of experience that's important, because a lot of these times, these films, they're showed at, you know, at someone's house or something, you know? It never gets the showing that it deserves.
A celebration.
Now, these filmmakers get in front of the audience and
pack the house,
and they're like, how'd you do it? And they're talking about how just a couple friends with, some ambition and like grit went out and did it.
With the hope of forming a connection.
We need things to bring us together instead of ripping us apart. And cinema has that power, and it's like, I think that there's so many amazing things that cinema can do, and it's like, we see it happening here in Anchorage.
Joe Allgood, Alaska's news source.
In Fairbanks, a community effort is making sure every child can experience the joy of giving this season. Today, the Two Rivers Homestead Charter School and Timberwolf Pact are hosting their annual free Christmas store. It's a magical event where children can create shopping lists, budget play money, and select gifts for their families, all at no cost.
Their faces just glow. They come to you and they're like, can you help me wrap this for my mom? Hurry, she might see. And it really just brings so much joy to the students. It brings joy to the families. It brings joy to our community members.
The event is today from 4 to 7 p.m. at Two Rivers School in Fairbanks. Organizers are still looking for adult volunteers. If you're interested, contact the Timberwolf Pact Facebook page or Homestead Charter Facebook page.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Click subscribe so you can get the latest podcasts from Alaska's news source automatically, and stay up to date with breaking news and in-depth reporting available for free 24/7 with the Alaska's news source app.